Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello, everyone. I'm not Alicia. I'm Nathan.
And I am David.
And welcome to this week's episode of Adventures and Mousecapades. This week, we're going to read through Disney's annual proxy statement recently published ahead of the upcoming shareholder meeting on Monday, April 3rd. We've got over 100 pages of content to review in the next few hours, so let's not waste any time and dive right in. No, we're not going to do that. This week, I wanted to have on a very special guest, my dad. He's an artist who these days plays with photography and digital collages. But when I was growing up, he was a painter working acrylic on canvas into amazing seascapes and abstract pieces in sizes ranging from just a few inches to a few yards. He grew up in the days of animated shorts at the movies and lived in LA for a while in college. He taught art at the university level for many years, and in fact, that's where he met my mom. They'll be celebrating their 53rd wedding anniversary here in just a couple months. We did a Disneyland and Sea trip with my folks way back in 2009 when Caitlin was just 4 years old. We covered that in episodes 2 and 3. And it was amazing to see the joy of my dad's reaction to all of the artistic details in the parks and on the ship. Over the subsequent years, we've had several conversations with my dad about how Disney influenced him as a kid and what he remembers about Disney animation, the artists involved, and how Disney kind of influenced his career. Books about Disney art and their artists have become a popular theme in our birthday and Christmas gifts of late, and it's been really cool to hear his takes on those subjects. And so with that in mind, I want to give a very warm welcome to my dad, David Novak.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I'm glad to be here as part of your Disney project.
Yeah, this is so fun. Can you give us a brief introduction, kind of who you are, where and when you came from? You know, you came down from like an asteroid, like Superman, right? No, where you were born, who was in your family growing up?
All right, I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa in 1941. I have a brother, Bruce, who was born in 1937 and lived in Cedar Rapids until I was 18 when I left to go to college. And my early education was elementary, was St. Matthew's Catholic School in Cedar Rapids.
Okay.
And then we moved. There's 2 locations in Cedar Rapids that are important to all of this.
Okay.
And I'm going to call one the First Avenue house.
Okay.
And the other one the Seventh Avenue house.
Okay.
And I lived in the First Avenue house from 1941 to 1950. And then we moved to the Seventh Avenue house in 1950. And I lived there until I left to go to college.
Got it. Is that the house that I remember visiting when I was a young lad, the 7th Avenue house? Or did they move again afterwards?
Oh, no, that was, my parents moved to C Avenue Northeast.
Okay, got it.
That was the house you visited when we were out there. And
Okay.
when you went out there to be with Mother for your solo trip.
Yeah.
And so forth, yeah. The importance of the 2 schools, one, the elementary school, is where basically this all kind of started.
Okay.
And I have here timeline of 1946 to 53. It's probably more like 47 to 54.
Okay.
Because at 6 years old is when I remember making the first drawings.
Got it.
Not connected to Disney at this time.
Sure.
When I was early. The connection was that I like to draw.
Yeah.
And I like to kind of dream. The teachers, the nuns at St. Matthew's School would call me a daydreamer.
Okay.
But I was drawing all the time, which they would catch me drawing on the papers, et cetera, in school. So the early couple years, 47, 48, would be part of that idea.
Yeah.
The Disney got started because, like on holidays, my parents or my dad would give me like a quarter
Okay.
to take the bus to go to the movies because they would do children's features at one of the theaters in downtown Cedar Rapids.
Oh, neat.
So you'd go for two features. You had a feature, then you had the middle break, and then the second feature.
Yeah.
And they were all aimed at kids.
Okay. Okay.
You know, like Tom Mix serials and Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, all this stuff. And then they'd show cartoons in the break.
Right.
And that's where I first saw Disney. That's the first one. I don't remember which.
Sure.
This was probably 47, 48.
Okay. Okay.
And I got involved in then watching the figures move.
Oh, the animation.
The
yeah.
animation was absolutely fascinating to me. Not so much what stories were being told, but
Yeah.
what the different characters were doing.
Because you could see a drawing, a
Yeah.
piece of art, and all of a sudden it came to life.
Came to life.
Yeah.
Another thing, I think this was part of what Disney was putting together at the time when they would show these films, was they'd show a paintbrush going across the top of the
screen.
box screen,
Yeah.
and then the paint would flow down the screen and create a picture.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was really fascinating. So that's where that all got started, was the First Avenue house in my elementary school.
Yeah.
And then we moved, in 1950, we moved to 7th Avenue.
Okay.
And I transferred from St. Matthew's Catholic Elementary to Immaculate Conception middle school, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
6th, 7th, and 8th grade, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I got involved with working with some of the nuns and making art projects.
Oh, cool.
And they really were very influential in my development in the cartooning and watercolor painting.
That's so great that you had teachers really lean in and see what was interesting you. And, you know, I think so many teachers would be like, oh, stop doodling, or, you know, you need to pay better attention. And instead they saw that as an avenue to really reach out to you and foster that and helped you develop. That's really cool.
Yeah, they paid good attention to what I was doing. Parallel to this, actually, at the same time, my mother was very interested in me learning music.
Okay.
So I began studying and playing the trumpet.
Right.
And that was, I think it started at St. Matthew's, but I know it went on in Immaculate Conception at the 7th Avenue house, because I must have been very good at the trumpet, because all of a sudden I was being asked to play for all kinds of things at the school, at Immaculate Conception. Especially like the halftime, playing music during a basketball game. We didn't have any football.
Right.
The Christian school or the Catholic schools didn't get age in football, but they did basketball.
Right.
So I think I was alone, but I'm not sure. This is where my mind's a little fuzzy.
It's been a few years. It's okay.
So what I would do was play these different fight songs at different points during the game, and especially at halftime. We must have had some other players, because I wasn't doing that alone.
Yeah.
But that was parallel to the drawings and the cartoons and the Disney influences that kind of went together with it,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed very much doing it.
Do you remember any of those shorts that really stood out to you, or some of those movies that really stood out to you?
You know, in terms of shorts, Disney shorts, I don't remember Disney shorts. I remember the films, the feature-length films.
Okay.
I'm going to say this, you may not like it, but some of the shorts that were played at the features were like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. The Warner Brothers stuff.
Yeah. Bugs Bunny, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those characters. Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
Tweety Bird.
Yeah.
Or whatever her name was.
Oh, that's right.
Those were the shorts.
Okay.
But I don't believe Disney, I don't remember seeing any shorts per se from Disney. They were all feature films.
Okay.
And was interesting. All of it was interesting to me.
So we have talked a little bit and been emailing back and forth just so you could work on remembering a few things and writing down a few notes. And you wrote down several Disney specific movies that really kind of spoke to you or had an influence. And I want to just kind of talk through a few of these. The first one is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, this came out in 1937, so clearly this was a rerun that you saw maybe in one of those kids' matinee special kind of things. But what speaks to you or really captured you even today about Snow White?
Snow White I was very interested in the dwarfs and how they related to the whole scheme of what was going on with the idea of the Snow White. The dwarfs were what interested me the most for some reason. I liked the way they acted. I liked their voices. I liked their shapes and forms.
Yeah.
And that was my main connection to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Even today, we always joke that you're grumpy.
That's it. Yes, absolutely. So that was the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I don't remember much else in terms of the characters. Of course, Snow White.
Sure.
Was there a prince in that one too?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of misogynistically comes and kisses her in the middle of the woods without
didn't
consent.
turn into a frog or anything, which would have been fun.
Yeah. One of the other movies you wrote down was Pinocchio. Again, this came out in 1940, so you probably saw it on a rerun.
Yeah, Pinocchio. I liked Jiminy Cricket.
Yep.
He was fascinating. Again, I wasn't paying much attention to the story or to the puppet maker or to Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I liked his nose. I didn't know what that meant at first. I couldn't figure out why this kid's nose kept growing until actually I was an adult. But I enjoyed Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first characters that I tried to draw.
Oh, wow.
And I had no way to reproduce it like in a magazine or anything.
Sure.
So I saw that film a lot. I think that was basically a feature film that they were showing because you could go and watch it again and again and again. And I probably watched that thing 10 times.
Oh, wow.
And then I tried to draw
From
Jiminy
memory.
Cricket from memory,
Yeah.
which it was all right.
Yeah.
It didn't quite satisfy my interests. That's about the extent of it for some reason. I don't have any deep memories of the rest of what was going on.
Yeah, that's okay. Obviously, we had other movies. I'm surprised that you didn't highlight Fantasia that also came out. That one's one of my classic Disney favorites.
You know, I have it down here because I know I saw it, but I do not remember any part of it for some reason. That and Dumbo. I remember the elephant,
Right.
but it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't latch
didn't
onto
connect.
you. Yeah.
And Bambi is another one that didn't connect for some reason.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The next one you have here on the list, though, the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Yeah.
From 1949.
I really had a good time with that one. I loved Cyril the horse. And I was successful at copying him for some reason. He was one of the first characters that I felt satisfied that I could draw the character that, to me, related to what I was seeing in the film.
Yeah.
I never really used the Toad. The Toad was good, too.
Yeah.
The Toad, I never really used them in any cartoon structure, but I would just practice drawing them.
Yeah.
It was fun to draw them.
Were you just drawing kind of just freehand portraits, or would you try to do a little bit of animation, like a couple different frames?
I didn't do any animation with the Toad or Cyril because I was having more fun just drawing them.
Yeah.
And over and over and over. I spent hours doing this.
I did the same thing when I was real young, doing a lot of drawings of, they were Lamborghinis and other things that I would learn how to teach myself how to freehand and stuff like that. So I get it.
When I was at St. Matthew's, I would draw birds flying at you. You could draw like a little circle and some wings. I had these things all over my paper. And then I was really enamored with the Corsair airplane during World War II. It also had the gull wings.
Yes.
I'd draw that all over the place with different renderings of the propeller going around. That's what the teachers kept finding on my papers. I enjoyed doing that.
You also highlighted Cinderella from 1950.
Yeah, I like the pumpkin. I like it when the carriage would turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if there were any characters as such. I liked the whole story. None of the characters, I didn't try to draw much from it, but for some reason I really liked the whole thing.
Yeah.
The entity of the entire Cinderella film, which I saw a lot too. I would go to them over and over and over, and they'd come back to the theaters. So like a year later, I'd see it again. But still, the thing that captured my interest was the transition of the carriage to the pumpkin at midnight.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting thing, especially at that time, you could only do with a cartoon of transforming an object. Today we have computers that can do it and, morph one person's face into another. But I could see how that would capture like your imagination or a young kid's imagination of seeing this change. That's cool. Really
fascinated with the whole concept of animation.
Yeah.
I didn't really know at that time. This is, I'll say pre-7th Avenue. This was up 49, 48. Of course, some of these came out in 49, so that had to be after the move to 7th Avenue.
Yeah.
But the influence of Disney and the animated films during the First Avenue house was just the characters. I didn't know how any of the animation, it was total magic to me.
Right.
And that magic was just, I would just sit there. It really was really fascinating to me. I didn't know how it was done, and I really, at that time, wasn't interested in how it was done. I just loved the characters.
Yeah, you just liked the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked what was going on.
That's so cool. You have Alice in Wonderland from 1951 written down.
Alice in Wonderland. That probably is the best all around. I liked everything that went on in that film, that animation. I was enamored with the playing cards doing their...
Yeah.
And I even tried to do a sculpture of that. It didn't succeed. I could not get the sculpture to work out at all for the cards. But the Queen and everything that had to do with the magic, with Who Are You? What was that guy? Caterpillar.
Yes.
The Caterpillar. Tremendous. I really liked him a lot. And that was a part of the 7th Avenue house.
Right.
And there's where I got interested in the cells, or whatever you call the making in the same character and make it move.
Yeah.
Because up the street, I met a friend, Tom McGregor, who was actually a better cartoonist than I was, but we would get together and have drawing sessions. We would create our own characters. We'd collaborate. We'd go back and forth. He'd create one, and I'd learn how to draw it. I'd create one. He'd learn how to draw it. And then we worked together on doing the paper, the movement. Where you would flip the paper and you'd see the...
Yeah.
That's where we started doing that.
And you did your own stories?
We collaborated on the stories because I was terrible at creating a story. I could create the figures and the animations and all the backgrounds and so forth, but I was terrible at creating a story. He did the story work, but we would work on it together.
Yeah.
We would correct it and say, no, we really don't want to do that or whatever. We spent hours and hours and hours and hours in doing that stuff.
That's so neat.
That was fascinating. Yeah.
That's neat. Do you remember some of what some of the stories that you may have told just at a high level? It's all gone.
It's all gone, and I wish that I had kept some of the actual cartoons.
Yeah.
I don't have any existing cartoons that I know of left. I don't know what happened to them, but they were in the thousands.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of this took place during the summers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tom, I don't think went to I was still going to the Catholic school, and Tom was in the public school, so we didn't really see each other much during the school year.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, we were together all the time.
And was it pencil drawing or ink? Or?
Ink, pen and ink, Higgins ink, Higgins black ink. I'm trying to think of the pen name. Speedball pens.
Okay.
Speedball. They had all these different nibs that you could work with on incredible stuff. And then brush.
So you'd color them in?
Black and white, yeah.
Okay.
Some watercolor.
Okay.
I don't know if Tom did the watercolor. I was into the watercolor because that's what I worked with in the nuns. The nuns were working with me to create watercolor. So pen and ink and watercolor together.
Interesting.
And I connected that to the cartooning.
Yeah. That's neat.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. There was one other kid that lived between Tom and I. He was also Tom, but I cannot remember his last name. He was into puppets.
Huh.
He made his own puppets. And you talk about an artist. That guy was, Tom McGregor and I were in awe of what this kid could do.
Yeah.
I think he was a little older than we are.
Okay.
But we would get together at Tom's house on Saturday mornings for all of the puppet shows that came on for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, and whatever else was there. Well, the guy with the freckle face was...
I wasn't around. I don't know.
Yeah. And Froggy the Gremlin and all that stuff. And he would talk about that because that was his influence. I tried to get into making puppets, but...
It just wasn't your thing?
I just didn't connect to it.
So you had amazingly supportive teachers when you were in elementary and middle school.
Yes.
One thing that you brought up, and Mom actually reached out as well to make sure we talked about this, was the Golden Key Award.
Yes.
This is a scholastic art and writing competition.
Yes.
It's statewide in Iowa, and it looks like it's a program that's kind of nationwide as well.
Iowa was part of the Midwest region.
Okay.
Iowa wasn't the only state for the Midwest region, but I don't remember. They probably had 4 regions.
Right.
And I was part of the Iowa. Des Moines was the center for the Midwest region.
Okay. And the kind of the poll quote is, it's the very best work submitted to local programs. So
yes.
Do you remember kind of what your submission was?
Yes, I have it.
Cool.
I was going to try to get it out of the box in the garage, but it's been too cold to work down there. It's a cartoon that the nuns were absolutely fabulous here. I mean, they worked with me. This one specific, and I cannot remember her name. I mean, she would go out of her way to work with me. She'd invite me to the, what would you call it, the convent or whatever they lived, and we would set up in the kitchen or whatever, dining room, and she had all the supplies, and we would sit, and she'd draw, I'd draw, and fantastic. And that's where the drawing came out of that process.
Right.
And I had no idea. She took one and submitted it. Because it had to come from a teacher.
Okay.
It was an educational, gifted and talented program, which, whoa. I didn't know that until I did the research for this.
This talk.
Yeah. I had no idea that it was for the gifted and talented in the arts and writing. And only 5 to 7% of the applicants were ever awarded a gold key.
Wow.
And if you would look, I did put down the website where it was for Iowa.
Yeah. And
the people high up in both writing and art.
Yeah.
Andy Warhol got a good golden key.
Yeah.
Robert Redford got a gold key. And I was just amazed at the company I was included with. I forgot all about that.
Do you remember what the drawing was? What the cartoon?
Drawing was a picture of a basketball player, giant, tall basketball player, bending over the referee and saying, "What do you mean foul, big boy?" And she submitted that.
A little bit of your kind of attitude in there as well.
Yeah. What do you mean a foul, big boy? And it won the gold key for the region.
Wow.
For the
Midwest
drawing category. Yeah. I think she submitted it. Oh, I automatically went to the nationals, which I didn't make the cut there. But I did make the cut for the regional, and I still have the gold key. I just did put it on my scanner and scanned it, images of it, because I forgot what it looks like.
That's so cool. With your collaboration with Tom on those cartoons and stories, do you think there was a Disney influence to that at all? Was it kind of like an inspirational thing that you wanted to do on your own?
I was fascinated with the idea coming from the Sunday edition. The Cedar Rapids Gazette had a special insert every Sunday, which was a lot of serial cartoons.
Okay.
You know, Dick Tracy, Blondie, all kinds of stuff. And that's where we picked up the idea of doing a cartoon series.
Oh, so a panel cartoon.
Yeah, with the different panels and the movement of the figures and the story.
Right.
So Tom and I would work that up.
Cool.
And prior to actually going to 7th Avenue, my brother took a photography class, and he built this light box that he used to whatever you do in photography, because I never got involved in actual film photography. And after the class, I don't think he gifted me the light box, but I took it over. And that's where I started tracing the figures off the newspaper articles. You'd cut it out, put it on the light box, you put a piece of paper over it, and you'd draw the figure.
Right.
That's where Tom and I started. Then you could move the paper.
Right.
And you could multiple.
Right.
That's where that started. And then when we got really rocking and rolling after a while, we ditched the idea of copying characters from the newspaper, and we created our own people. We created a whole list of characters.
Oh, wow.
And then we would do the same thing with the light box. You draw a little bit and you move the paper around to get the animation. That's how we did it anyway.
That's so cool.
So the stories, I don't remember any of the stories.
Okay.
In terms of story, though, working with this nun at Immaculate Conception in her dining room, she wasn't really interested in working with me in terms of setting up a serial or what do you call
a comic strip?
A comic strip.
Yeah.
She was more interested in singular
pictures
with a verbal connection to it.
Okay.
Just one. It would be like almost like an editorial cartoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we worked on a lot on different ways. And she also worked with me in terms of how to create and learn watercolor techniques and pen and ink and pencil.
Got it.
And we did hundreds of those things too. So that's where that came from.
Man, I'm just continually impressed that your teachers leaned in with you. Like, that is not a thing you hear about very often.
No, it was fascinating. And even when I went into high school.
Yeah.
I had a run-in with some of the people at Immaculate Conception when I was about 13.
Okay.
And I didn't like what was happening. I was kind of getting afraid of them.
Okay.
The priests especially. I was scared to death of them. And Mother pulled me out of the Catholic school and put me into the public schools for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Okay.
Because the school was just a block away.
Okay.
I could walk and all that stuff. And I don't know if I got into cartooning too much there, because it's even at that particular point in time, Tom and I would work in the summers.
Got it.
I got into music at McKinley. And that's where my music.
Right.
I got rid of the trumpet. I went to saxophone.
Okay.
And then I got into jazz because there were some other people at McKinley that were actually had formed a band already, and I just joined them, and we played all the way through high school together.
And we could have a whole conversation
that's
about
a whole new.
That's a different topic. So
different topic.
Yes.
So the cartooning, I'm sure I did it, but I don't. The focus kind of shifted
from a visual art to a
from
performing
54.
art.
55, 56, because I don't remember the age when you're in, because the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades went to the new high school, Washington High School. We were the first class to go through all 3 years.
Oh, cool.
There, I picked up cartooning again.
Okay.
Because one of the history teachers loved my cartoons. I must have been drawing and doodling in class. And I like that, he said. And I would design projects for papers.
Okay.
I was a terrible writer.
For the school newspaper?
No, for the classwork.
Oh, interesting.
History lessons. And then I draw out my interpretation of whatever it was we were focusing on, and I draw it out on these huge sheets of paper that came out in a roll. And he'd put them up, tape them to the blackboard.
Oh, wow.
And he loved them. And I did those a lot.
Huh.
I mean, like that'd be butcher paper or something,
Yeah.
36 inches wide. And you just unroll it until you got the whole blackboard filled. And I'd sit there and draw the whole thing from one end to the other.
Wow. That is
And I was always historical events, whatever period of time we were talking about.
Yeah. Was that kind of your version of writing a paper?
Yes, because I couldn't write. And he knew that.
Yeah.
They also, all of them knew that at the school.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
Well, you still have a very strong fondness for commas and
Commas and bad spelling and a lot of So, yeah, again, the teachers recognized that.
yeah,
And they said, okay, we'll do this.
that is so
Because
special.
I did basically read the material.
Right.
I just couldn't put it back together. Couldn't take a test either. I never could remember anything for a test. So I draw out these things, and then he kept them.
And he knew that you got the material because otherwise you wouldn't have
I
been
wouldn't
able
be able to. And I'd talk about what was going on. I start drawing on the left side of the blackboard, and I'd say, well, here's George Washington, and here's so-and-so. And then they did this, and I'd draw them again. Of course, I was making up the drawings.
Right.
Poor George, I don't know what he looked like. And the other part of that, which was actually a verbal part of it, is I wanted to take a literature class or writing literature class with this one teacher who was really, really popular. He was a very interesting guy. And he let me come in because I wasn't in the college preparatory group. I was in what they called, I don't know, I call it the dummy group, which you did everything but the academics.
Right. Vocational.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did an assignment where you had to go and write about something small,
Okay.
something tiny, not microscopic, but.
Really small.
And I went out to some park, sat down in the sun and wrote some words about an ant crawling around, or a gnat crawling around the hairs on my hand. Huh. And I submitted that, and he went nuts over it. He wrote on the paper, "You are a poet," which I did write poetry also. I don't have any of that around either.
The ravages of time. And
So that's basically, Disney started it all.
yeah. Did you do, you had a note, and I think Mom mentioned something too, like in a school paper, did you do caricatures and things like that?
Yes. After my first production for the history teacher, somebody that was in the school newspaper wanted me to do characters of the administration. So I said, okay, well, then I know. Until they would give me a photograph
Right.
of each of these people, and I'm supposed to do a character of them. I did one, and I didn't particularly care for it, but I said, oh my God, how do you do this to these people who control your, am I going to get expelled? So I kept it pretty conservative.
Yeah.
It was basically a line drawing from the photograph with a few distortions. And I did a few of them, and I thought, I said to the newspaper people, I can't do this.
You weren't real comfortable with
I was very uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
I had enough trouble with my teachers. I don't need to force them to really get mad at me.
Yeah.
Because I kept my education pretty conservative.
Yeah. So you did make it through high school.
Yes.
And you did, and again, very different story, but you did make it to college.
I did.
And you decided to hop on a car, hop on a train, whatever, and you went to school for a year or so out in LA.
I did. long story short is that my mother kept pushing.
Yeah.
And she said, you are going to college. The school advisors and all the tests that I did, because it says, you will never get into a college. You will never go to college is what the school said.
Yeah.
The counselors, we'll call them. And my aptitude was to be a farmer. No, don't laugh. A farmer is a tremendous businessman if you ever studied how an Iowa farm works.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy had to be everything. Mechanic, bookkeeper, design the business, keep the business going, and all of that. Very, very, very tough job.
Not just labor. Like you're really running a small business by yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kept saying, okay, following the school people saying I'd never get to college, I was never interested. I didn't want to go to college. And I told my mother that, and she says, you're going to college. Okay. And she kept at me. And I was into airplanes at that time, model airplanes. I designed and built and flew model airplanes.
Okay.
I also did my music and I did my drawings all at the same time. So I says, all right. I says, I want to study aeronautical design engineering, which there aren't many colleges in Cedar Rapids or in Iowa.
Sure.
And I found this one in L.A., in Inglewood, Northrop Institute of Technology.
Okay.
I says, I want to go there. She did. She let me go. That's when I got on the train and went to California and started studying aeronautical design engineering. Still cartooning. I did more drawings and stuff there.
Yeah.
Also, and not that much studying of engineering.
But you were also playing a lot too.
I was also playing music a lot. Yes, I was playing in whatever local groups that I could pick up with.
Yeah.
And every Sunday down in, I was going to say Laguna Beach, but that might not be Laguna. There was a bar or place where live music was played. It's right next door to Howard Rumsey's Lighthouse.
Okay.
And every Sunday they had a open
jam session
with whoever was playing at Rumsey's. The talent would come over and work with whoever walked in the door.
Yeah.
That's where I met and worked with Dizzy Gillespie.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And I met some other people because that's also where I got an invite to join a freshly designed large band that was hired to do a project in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was hard to study engineering when I was drawing and playing music. And I was failing miserably at it. But anyway, there's how I got to California.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I knew I was not making it at Northrop Institute of Technology.
Right.
Because I really was having a struggle with all of it. Mathematics is not my forte either. So I secretly decided to go to or enroll myself in the California junior college system, which was free.
Got it.
I paid $2.50 a semester.
Jeez.
And I decided I'd study advertising design, layout.
Yeah.
Which is what Tom and I were doing with the cartoons.
Right. I think today we'd call it kind of graphic design.
Graphic design.
Yeah.
And I started doing that until my mother found out about it. And she says, no.
When you were down in LA, though, or in that area, did you ever get a chance to go down to Disneyland? Like, it had been open for a few years at that point.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
I never got to Disneyland because at the time, I had also, at Christmas time, bought a car in Cedar Rapids and drove it back to California. Because at that time, there was no public transportation.
Right.
You either took a taxi, you walked, no buses.
And California is still a car culture. Like, yeah.
So I bought a car, a Volkswagen Beetle, and was running that in L.A. So the guys, I lived in a rooming house, a boarding house with a bunch of other students.
This is in Manhattan Beach. I remember you telling me this story once. Or twice.
No. This was in Inglewood. I was still in Inglewood.
Okay, got it.
Prior to moving to Manhattan Beach.
Got it.
And Disneyland, the guys wanted to go down to Disneyland, but didn't have a way to get there. And I said, okay, take my car. Because I was doing a special project for an algebra thing that I got really involved in, actually. I even went ahead and created a chalkboard on a piece of masonite so I could start working. The mad scientist writing the formulas all over the blackboard.
Yeah.
So I had to get that thing done. So I couldn't go to Disneyland, to make a long story short.
Got it. So your car made it to Disneyland.
My car made it to Disneyland, and then they had an earthquake in Anaheim.
Oh, jeez.
While they were gone.
Oh, no.
And I says, uh-oh. Of course, there were no cell phones at that time.
Sure.
So I didn't know what to expect of them, but they all came back. No big problem there.
Wow. So what brought you back from music to really focusing and going really deep with visual art?
In my senior year in high school, we had this group, we were very successful. It was a quintet.
Mm-hmm.
And the new kid on the block came in playing alto saxophone, which was far superior than I ever was. And they wanted him, the rest of the group wanted him to become part of the group. When I got kind of angry with that,
Yeah.
I also started thinking I wanted to do an art form that didn't rely on someone else to produce it. I wanted to do it alone. And that's when I decided to refocus on the art, because then I was the sole creator of the entire project.
Got it. So you were still playing music when you were in LA just because you loved playing music and you had an avenue to do that, but you had really refocused on art. Got it. Okay.
And I took this at El Camino College in El Camino, California. The advertising design, you had to take like basic design, advanced design, drawing, and there was some other courses I took. And I took this basic design course. I remember this man to the day I die. He was sitting where you are, Charles Blusk.
Okay.
He was absolutely behind me 1,000%.
Wow.
And he throw out these projects, and he did everything on 8.5 by 11-inch pieces of mat board.
Okay.
Which he had an art store specially make for his classes. And he'd give you a project, design ABC or whatever it was. And I'd do the design.
Yeah.
And he had a picture railing going around the room of his classroom. So what you did when you came into the classroom with your finished project, you laid it on that railing.
Right.
And then he'd come in and start going down. And what he'd do is he would grab the ones he didn't like and throw them into the room. Just sail them off into the room. He'd go, no good, no good, no good. Oh, he liked this. And every project I did for that guy, I was in the top 1%.
Wow.
And then he had the layout of El Camino College. It was much like the junior campus in Saybrook. It was the pods.
Oh, yeah. So circular classroom buildings.
Yeah. And each one of the buildings, like the art one, had a window to put projects in for all of the arts. And mine was in there all the time for design. But that guy was, and he kept saying, Novak, you're not a designer. You're a painter. And he kept saying that. And obviously, as soon as my mother figured out I wasn't studying engineering anymore, she said, if you want to continue with this, you come home and go to the University of Iowa.
Got it.
That's
yeah. And it turned out that you didn't know that University of Iowa at that time and still today is an amazing art school.
Yes. Because at the same time I was studying classes at El Camino, you had access to the other schools in the California system. And I knew several people that were going to UCLA. So I'd go up to the campus, and as a enrolled member in the California system, I had the rights to what they call, not monitor, but audit classes. And I was auditing this drawing class with a guy named John Paul Jones. And I thought his name was kind of interesting, since that's a British...
rock star.
No, John Paul Jones was a historical
yes.
English Navy dude.
Yes. What am I thinking?
John Paul Jones was probably a rock star.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I got to know him, because he knew I was from Cedar Rapids. Well, I didn't pay much attention to that until Mother said, you got to come home. You're going to the University of Iowa. So I was up there one day taking classes, and it was over, and I said to John, I said, do you know anything about the University of Iowa? And I told him the story.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I know a lot about it. I got my MFA in printmaking from the University of Iowa.
Master of Fine Arts.
Master of Fine Arts in printmaking with Marie Shalozansky, another world international figure in the arts. And that's how I got to Iowa.
That's cool. What did you get? Like you earned I think a few degrees, didn't you?
3 of them, yeah. I can't go to college, though.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll never succeed. Not only did I go to college, but I got 3 master's degrees, and I taught there for 3 years.
And I remember you told me once that you got pretty much everything for your doctorate done, but didn't really feel like writing their dissertation.
I couldn't write.
You couldn't do a cartoon for your dissertation?
No, they were not accepting cartoons for the PhD dissertation. Yeah. And it was in Asian studies because I was really interested in Chinese art.
Oh, okay.
And Indian art.
Okay.
Those were the 2 main elements of a doctorate in Asian studies, Asian art or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
But I decided to, because you got 90, I was there 3 years, 120 semester hours I had for a doctorate.
Yeah.
Everything done with the exception of the thesis. And I couldn't write it. I said, I don't want to go. I already wrote 1 MA thesis and 1 Master of Fine Arts thesis, and I was tired of writing these academic papers. So I wouldn't have passed anyway, I don't think.
When you think back on your artwork over the last 6 decades, really, of your art career, from university onwards, do you think that there was any Disney influence or from like inspiration that you brought forward from as a younger kid to what you put out I
think the entire, what I'll call the entire Disney experience, which includes I realize this is post college or anything, when we did the trip.
Yeah, back in
the
2009.
parks.
Yeah.
Because I remember when the very first Mickey Mouse Club program was broadcast. I don't remember the year.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I was still in high school.
Okay.
I would come home from high school and watch that. I really was fascinated by what they produced.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Disney also had a television program where they showed a Disney movie every week.
Yeah, The Wonderful World of Disney.
Yep.
Yep.
And I watched that religiously because there's some magic to all of that.
Yeah.
And that magic in the drawing, and all of my other education in the arts while I was at Iowa, including drawing from the nude, drawing from the clothed model, drawing from nature, because we drew everything, painted everything. But Disney, the magic still does something to me. I can't come up with the answer or a name for it. I'll call it the magic.
Yeah.
Because I'm still fascinated with their stuff.
Yeah.
And when we went to the parks or wherever we were, we went to those the seagulls.
Yes. Yeah.
Mine.
Yes.
That was absolutely. I don't know that. I could have watched that all day. Then we went to the animation studios, and oh my God.
Yeah.
I just absolutely melted.
Yeah, there was I forget where exactly it was, but it was a history of Disney animation.
Yes.
It was like a 20 or 25-minute video presentation. And then there was a museum, if I remember correctly,
yes,
and had a bunch of
cells, and storyboards.
Yeah.
And that all of this stuff going all the way back to 1940s came back that time. I mean, it all was connected to my head.
Yeah.
It was nostalgia, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
A magic, a sense of connection.
Yeah. Do you think Disney still has that in the more modern era where they've, the kind of the more modern movies that have come out and what they're doing in the parks today? Or has it become more commercial? I mean, it's always been commercial.
Disney was a very bright guy in terms of producing a product that connected to everybody.
Yeah.
A branding, he was a genius at it. Commercial, I never really thought of it as commercialism, not like you would. I'm trying to think of a cartoon or something that is used as a commercial, and I can't think of one at the moment.
Well, I mean, they're all commercialized. Like it's. Do you think Disney's still in it for the art, or do you think it's more of about putting out a product that can sell? Or, I mean, obviously it's a bit of both. I mean, it's not a nonprofit organization.
Well, judging from what they did with the last CEO or whatever,
Yeah.
who was a bean counter,
Yeah.
and it really was destroying Disney, and they were smart enough to realize that that really isn't the total focus of what we do.
Yeah.
It's the people out there that relate to the product we produce
Yeah.
that's important.
Yep.
And the ideas that we then allow the artists and creators to put together. So I don't remember seeing anything under his guidance except I remember his name.
Chapek.
I don't remember seeing anything that he put together because he was basically removing it.
Yeah.
If it didn't make any money, he threw it out. And that's not what I remember.
Yeah.
Even now, as we sit here, we subscribe, I guess you call it, to the Disney Channel and
Disney Plus. And, yeah.
Disney Plus. And the stuff's still there. And then you and I have gone to some movies in Bellevue.
Yep.
Recent Disney productions. And yeah, I think the magic's still there.
Yeah. We always talk about on the podcast how the cast members, the people who were there are creating the magic. But I think you bring up a completely different perspective. It's not just the cast members that you interact with in the parks or on the ships or in the resorts, but it's the cast members who are the Imagineers, who are the artisans, who are the designers, who pour their heart and soul into what you see and feel and hear in the parks. It's a complete package.
It's a complete package. And I don't remember we went in to sit and watch a production of something that was on a screen, I think, of the turtle floating inside and all. I don't remember.
It was probably Story Time with Crush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took me a bit to figure out what was going on, but he was asking questions. And the audience was answering, and they were talking back and forth. And I'm saying, whoa. And that blew my mind. I says, my God, look where this has gone.
Yeah, they're animating on the fly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interactive animation. Holy Toledo. I was just absolutely taken back. That was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And that's just a continuation of where this all started for me. The magic.
Yeah.
The magic of Disney was absolutely fabulous.
Wow. Is there anything that is a Disney influence or that you can think of Disney related that we haven't really talked about?
Some of the new, and I can't think of the name of it, not DeLorean, Mandalorian.
Yeah.
That genre of, or I don't know if that's the correct word, but the structure of it.
It's a Western. Like
the concept of the future.
Yeah.
And the Mandalorian, what they're doing, of course, it's got, what's his face, the little...
Grogu, Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda, yeah. Fantastic. But the concept that they're now doing basically feature films with actors, costume design, all of it, it still goes back, in my mind, when I look at The Mandalorian and what's going on there, storyline, basically the entire structure goes all the way back to what Walt was doing in the 30s.
Of telling that story with
Telling
a
a
complete
story
package.
with a total package and the magic.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, this has been a magical conversation.
Oh, indeed.
And I've really enjoyed it. I have a few closing little fast questions for you.
Okay.
Who's your favorite Disney character? And it can be classic Disney, it can be Marvel, Star Wars. Who's your favorite Disney-related character?
Disney-related character. Well, I always liked Donald Duck.
Okay.
And I've always liked Goofy. And there's another one that's not Disney related that I used to watch a lot when I was in college, and that's Rocky the Flying Squirrel. Boris and Natasha.
Yep. From Rocky and Bullwinkle.
And Bullwinkle.
Yep.
And I really like Cyril the Horse from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
What's your favorite Disney movie?
I'd have to say Alice in Wonderland.
What was your favorite experience at Disney World in the parks?
I love we stayed at the Animal Kingdom.
Yep.
And that interaction with the animals off the deck was fascinating. And then the tours that they would do.
The safari.
The safari.
Yeah.
And then we went, your mother and I went up to, I don't remember the country, the countries.
In Epcot, in the World Showcase.
Where they were looking at Islam.
Oh, in Morocco, probably.
Yeah.
The Morocco
the
pavilion.
Design.
Yes. I forget his title. King, Sultan, whatever. The leader of Morocco, when that was being built, sent his artisans over to be used in all those inlays and designs and mosaics and everything. And there's not a ton going on in Morocco from a showcase when you compare it to Norway or some of these other ones that are there. But the architecture and design in Morocco Pavilion is stunning.
It is.
And it's worth just going in there and enjoying, just consuming it, taking it all in.
I experienced almost the same magic that I get when watching a Disney animation from the 40s or a Disney animation now or Mandalorian. There is a magic there that kind of combines it all together, meshes it together.
Yeah.
That's even just walking around the park, what we did every day.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going to the different places was magic.
Do you have a favorite Disney snack that you can remember?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember a Disney snack at all.
I think you'd like a churro.
A who?
A churro. You know, it's a nice long Hispanic snack. It's basically a long breadstick with cinnamon sugar on it.
Oh, I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly. Dad, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Oh, I enjoyed it immensely. Memory trip is a great thing. At my age especially. Doing it with you is fantastic. Thank you for inviting me.
My distinct pleasure. That was pretty special for me. And thank you to everybody who's listening for letting me self-indulge a little bit and having my dad on, because this was pretty special. And I think he encapsulated what Disney means to us and hopefully all of you, and that Disney is magic. And that's why we keep going back and coming back and doing all things Disney, because it really is that lifetime of magic that we're after. As a reminder, we're not affiliated with Disney and we're not travel agents. So while we can offer our opinions and suggestions, we recommend working with a travel agent to plan your perfect vacation. If you have suggestions or questions or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your Disney experience, please send an email. We're at podcast@adventuresandmousecapades.com. You can follow us on social medias or at Our Mousecapades. Give us a rating and review in your favorite podcast app to really help people find us through the algorithms and the magic of the interwebs. And once again, thanks for listening. We'll be in your ears next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.